Hello and welcome back to CWU Live. I'm Michael Walker and today's episode is all about Parcelforce. To answer your questions about a vitally important part of the union, I'm joined by Davie Robertson, Assistant Secretary with responsibility for Parcelforce. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
You guys know this show is about you. I want to put your questions to Davie, so put them in the comments. We've already collected a few which were put on the YouTube today, so thank you for those already. I will be asking Davie those, but as your questions and concerns arise, do put them in there. So much to talk about. I thought let's start with sort of your opening thoughts. What have you been up to since you last came on this show? What should viewers know before we get into their questions?
Yeah, thanks for that, and it's great to have the opportunity to speak to our Parcelforce members. I know when we're out and about and we're talking to them, there's so much focus just now and so much attention on the USO change. I think it's sometimes easy for people to feel, that that's the only thing that matters and they've been left out, which is most certainly not the case. There's always, the department's always working on Parcelforce. It's always looking to improve things in Parcelforce, and I think we all recognise, and the members will certainly recognise, it's been a tough couple of years in Parcelforce. Through the dispute, where Parcelforce were very front-footed, if that's a phrase, on attacking our members, our reps, and then in the aftermath of that, the position that the company took during the BRT&G discussions, where at that time the view of Royal Mail was there was only two futures for Parcelforce. One was to close it, the other one was to shrink it and turn it into a gig economy employer. That's meant we've had a difficult couple of years, but we have come through that. We are continuing to try and shape the future. And I think hopefully we'll talk about today some of the things that have happened in recent weeks, recent months, that make us think there is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe for the first time in a few years there's some focus in Royal Mail on Parcelforce and what Parcelforce can become.
I mean, we're going to get onto this building a future transformation plan in one moment.
Yeah.
First of all, though, I just wanted to sort of get some clarity, really, because when we've been talking about Royal Mail on recent shows, the two big issues, I mean, there's lots of issues that workers are concerned about, start times, pay, etc.
Yeah.
But the two big macro issues sort of shaping the conversation are this EP group takeover and the USO. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how those two issues apply to people who work for Parcelforce. For the USO, it's more indirectly, isn't it? But for the EP group, it's exactly the same as for the Royal Mail members in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the EP Group is in the agreement that's been made with EP Group, which obviously doesn't have status yet officially until the takeover takes place, which we anticipate to be within the next month or so. That fundamentally affects Parcelforce because EP Group will become the sole owner of Royal Mail Group, which obviously includes Parcelforce. What's significant, of course, in the EP agreement, and I'm sure the Parcelforce members who've read that agreement or read the briefings on it, or even watched the shows, the Royal Mail shows that we've done here, will recognise that the agreement with EP Group does provide a level of opportunity. I think because certainly EP Group may be an unknown quantity, but they're certainly acting in a way that's more favourable to the CWU than the current Royal Mail board. But specifically for Parcelforce members, some of the commitments that have been put in there, one of which around pay, which will affect Parcelforce, but extremely specifically to Parcelforce, the reintroduction or the reinforcement of the resourcing mix in Parcelforce and the level of external resource, that actually starts to unpick some of the damage that was done by the company during the dispute, where the company effectively walked away from a number of national agreements, one of which was the mixed resourcing agreement, which controlled the level of owner-drivers and external resource in Parcelforce. That's now been re-established in the EP agreement, which I think all of our reps and members will welcome, because we all know that in recent years the company has been very seduced by gig economy model, the not even so much the owner-driver model, but the use of couriers. And this reintroduction or restatement of the mixed resource and ratios is a really important step in trying to reset that balance and get Parcelforce back onto a manageable level of resource, which will absolutely be to the benefit of our members. So the EP agreement is crucial for Parcelforce. The USO is, you'll be hearing so much about it. Everybody will. It's a fundamental change in the way the Royal Mail letters or Royal Mail will operate. Although the actual change is a letters change, the parcels operation in Royal Mail will be largely static. The parcels, and that's the processing and delivery. But the letters operation will change in the way that Royal Mail delivers. The letters will change. Parcelforce, of course, as you know, is not covered by the USO. We don't deliver USO products. So directly, the USO change won't affect Parcelforce. Of course, what it will affect is Royal Mail. And given that we are working on utilising and maximising the synergies between the two businesses or the two networks as part of the sort of single parcel network, single large parcel network concept, the change will have some effect on Parcelforce, but it's peripheral. It's not the direct effect that it will have in Royal Mail. So take an interest in it if you're in Parcelforce, but it's not going to fundamentally change your job. The change that's coming in Parcelforce will be the important change for you. The USO change is something that's happening in Royal Mail, which is important because it does, and to some degree, will determine the future success of Royal Mail, but it won't affect the Parcelforce operation directly.
Yeah, just because you mentioned the 75-25 ratio of owner drivers to drivers who aren't owning the vehicles. Yeah. There's a question from Jonah, says, Davie, 75-25 ratio still stands, but my depot is at over 30% and climbing. We have vacancies for new staff, but the management won't recruit, claiming they can't find decent drivers. What can we do?
Well, what we can do is we are going to address that. So there's no doubt about it. It was after the fact. There was almost a bit of opportunism on the part of Parcelforce. So as a bit of a history recap, on the 22nd of September 2022, I remember the date well because I was actually with Dave Ward when Simon Thompson handed us the letter, where Royal Mail served notice on the legally binding contract, as it was known at the time, so the legal commitments in the Agenda for Growth agreement. They served notice on them at that time. Now, belatedly, 6 months down the line, it suddenly dawned on Parcelforce that they might be able to make an argument that serving of notice on the legally binding contract had also served notice on the resourcing mix. Now, our legal advice at the time was that that's not the case. However, Parcelforce, without a doubt, acted on that basis. As part of the BRT&G agreement, we did manage to stem the flow, but in those talks, Royal Mail Group's position was that Parcelforce should move to initially a 50%, 50-50 mix, but with then all new recruits being owner-drivers until they got to a 100% owner-driver model. And we actually believe that during those talks, we managed to stop the company enacting a policy, which we believed they were ready to do, which was to, instead of offering VR in Parcelforce, actually offer cash incentives to our members to become owner-drivers to speed up that process. Now, we put a stop to that, but there's no two ways about it. The question's correct. The mixed resourcing mix, and to be clear, the CWU's position, and that was a position agreed with the gentleman who's now the COO of Royal Mail Group, Alistair Cochrane, in 2018, was that 25% included all external resource. So that includes owner-drivers, includes couriers, includes agency. Should all be part of that 25%. We're currently above that. Parcelforce are currently well above that. They're probably running at the 35 to 40% nationally. Not owner-drivers. The owner-driver level is below the 25%, but there's an awful lot of couriers out there. So what we're going to do about it, we've written to the company. We've said the EP agreement is quite clear. The EP agreement re-establishes those ratios. We expect now to discuss with the company a flight path to get that level back down to the 25%. And that will mean recruitment of internal drivers or employed drivers. And it's crucial that we do that. There are plenty of vacancies just now in Parcelforce and plenty of opportunities for recruitment in Parcelforce. And that may even assist with some of the surpluses in Royal Mail with regards to the USO. There could be opportunities for people to come into Parcelforce if they fancied a sort of change in career path. So, yes, the important bit was re-establishing the ratio. The job now is to open up the discussions, and I've written to Rob Fowler, the managing director, saying we now need to be agreeing on the flight path and the timeline to get the resourcing mix back down to 25, which is where it should always have been.
Yeah, and I suppose briefly, why is it that you want to keep the owner-driver ratio down? Why do the company want it to be higher? Why do you want it to be lower? What's the sort of background?
Well, I suppose the obvious answer is for the company, Parcelforce, as do Royal Mail, we operate in the UK in an environment where, to be honest, the owner-driver or the lifestyle courier model is the predominant model. In Royal Mail and Parcelforce, we are probably the last company who employ people to deliver parcels. Almost everywhere it is either owner-driver or lifestyle courier. For the company, that's seductive because they don't pay holiday pay, they don't pay sick pay, they don't pay uniform, they don't pay for the van, they don't pay for the diesel. They don't
really have any long-term obligations.
They have no long-term obligation. They have no, if they don't like the performance of a driver, they just release them. For us, what made Parcelforce different in the area that Parcelforce operates, which is in the high-value, high-performance area, where quality service has to hit the 97, 98, 99% all of the time, there is a benefit in the fact that Parcelforce does employ people, that the company does have a responsibility that the people who work for the company, our members, their employees, are bought into the sort of service delivery aspect, customer service aspect of the business. So, and to be honest, we want, and we have fought for many years, including in 2019 when we stopped Royal Mail with the members' support. We stopped Royal Mail separating Parcelforce off. That was crucial. Had we not done that, I suspect now Parcelforce either wouldn't exist or everybody in it would be an owner-driver. We've battled through the BRT&G years, and we're now in a position with the EP agreement where we can re-establish that sort of benchmark, which allows the company some flexibility. But what it does, and this is where Parcelforce, over the period, and I'm talking probably about the previous management more than the management now, and again I'm talking about at the very senior level of the company, there was, during the dispute and coming out of it, definitely part of the Parcelforce strategy was to almost make the owner-drivers and the couriers the resource of first resort, and our members the kind of fill in the gaps. We have to re-establish, and the mixed resourcing agreement when it was made was absolutely clear. The employed resource is the resource, is the core. The external resource is the flexible resource that can be moved up and down to meet demand. We re-established that to a degree in the BRT&G, but we've now got the opportunity to try and ensure, along with other activities that are going on just now, that we re-establish the absolute predominance of the employed drivers, our members, and the fact that they are the core resource, and everybody else, the external resource, is the flexible element.
Yeah. Let's go on to a big development in the past week. which is the announcement of the Building the Future Transformation Plan. I think all members will have got communication about this.
Yeah.
Can you sort of explain what this is, what the significance of it is?
Well, look, this is, I think it is significant. I think it's right to say this is a significant development. The up to last week, it was known in the ether as Project Daisy, which was the code name it was going under. But this is really, for the first time in probably a decade, we're in a position where Royal Mail Group feel confident in investing significant amounts of money in Parcelforce. And going back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, it is only 2 years ago that, one of the non-executive directors who was in the talks during the dispute said directly to me, there is the only futures for Parcelforce are close it or shrink it. We're now, 2 years down the line in a position where it does appear that Royal Mail Group and even the current board, who haven't traditionally been Parcelforce's best friends, have committed to a significant spend on Parcelforce's infrastructure. And that's to do a number of things, is to update IT technology, which in Parcelforce had been underinvested for many years. So it's about, the initial investment is around making sure that Parcelforce's technology is fit for purpose. But beyond that, and this is really the thing that makes it so significant, is beyond this initial investment in technology, this is to position Parcelforce, one, to be secure for the next 20 years, which is a phenomenal turnaround when, 2 years ago they were talking about closing it. They're now wanting to future-proof the company for the next 20 years, which we've got to support. And the other thing is to actually put us in a position where Parcelforce, which at its peak, pre-Apollo, carried fairly high volumes. After Apollo went down to a 40 million item a year network, we grew it from then to COVID to almost being back at a 100 million items a year network. Since COVID, since the dispute, it's probably running about 75 million items. This project and this kickstart, this Building the Future transformation project, is about positioning Parcelforce to grow to a 150 million item a year network over the next decade. So that's doubling the size of the business. So when you think about it, 2 years ago, shrink it or close it. We are now talking about growing the business, doubling it in the size. And all of this will be a sort of phased programme, which will be looking at the synergies with Royal Mail, avoiding some of the pitfalls of the past, so ensuring that Parcelforce and Royal Mail are not competing directly against each other, that we're running, what would be the word, symbiotic products that don't rub up against each other or don't directly compete with each other, that we use the best of both networks to provide the best solution for customers, so that hopefully the customers who want to post small parcels but also want to post or send premium items, high value items and large items can do so on a sort of one-stop shop. They can post some of it with Royal Mail, some of it with Parcelforce, but we create a scenario where both networks operate in a way where we can maximise the ability to grow volume, to grow revenue, to secure the future of both businesses, which in turn allows us to guarantee or protect job security. But also, when it comes to things like pay talks, puts us in a far better position than we've been in for a number of years, where we've been negotiating with a company that's either significantly loss-making or struggling to break even. So this is an opportunity. And for Parcelforce, it's one that looked very distant a couple of years ago, but I'm not saying it's going to be easy, and some of the change is going to be difficult, and for members, they'll have, I'm sure they've got a lot of questions on what it means for them. But I'd rather be having a discussion about how we grow the business than how we shrink it or close it. So I think this is a real opportunity for us.
And so you're saying this is a positive story because it shows there's a commitment to sort of keeping Parcelforce and growing it. So that's a big turnaround. Obviously, that's reassuring to members. I suppose there is also an element of change and things transforming, which people might be concerned will cause disruption to their work life. What are the kind of changes that people should expect to be coming down the line? I understand sort of new IT systems will be introduced in June. How will this affect Parcelforce workers on a day-to-day level?
Well, it's going to affect them. There's no two ways about it, and there's no point in trying to shy away from that. This is going to be a change. So, Parcelforce is using some systems that are now reaching end of life. They're not particularly adept, in dealing with this sort of modern environment. The way that people now interact with online retail, the way that the large posting companies want to engage with suppliers, the ability to read barcodes, the ability to read Royal Mail barcodes have all been a challenge in Parcelforce because the technology is becoming, if not obsolete, certainly time challenged. And it's right that that for the first time in a number of years, Parcelforce will have the investment to renew that. But it does mean a lot of what Parcelforce does just now, which has been tailored to the capability of the systems that they've currently got, a lot of that will change. They are looking to drive synergies with Royal Mail. So rather than upgrade Parcelforce's new capability with a new bespoke Parcelforce capability, I think the company believe that there's a great deal of logic in actually aligning the backroom systems so that effectively we are running one cohesive IT platform that will make things like moving volume between the two companies more easy, making dealing with customers on a sort of tripartite basis more easy. So effectively, if Screwfix, which is probably a bad example, but Marks and Spencers, if Marks and Spencers wanted to post smaller items with Royal Mail, but some high value items with Parcelforce, then they wouldn't have to use two distinct and separate onboarding systems to do business with us. They could use one system. So there's logic to it. But what it does mean is that most of Parcelforce's backroom systems are going to be stood down, and Royal Mail systems or versions of Royal Mail systems will come to the fore. And that is going to mean a lot of change for people. And that's not talking about operational change per se. It's not talking about where you go, what you do, although there may be some of that. But just basic things, the PDAs that our drivers use every day, to deliver parcels, to plot their route, to do whatever, that will move to a new system. Hopefully, the drivers will see some benefit in the fact that the REX system, which is, I think, been much maligned over many years, goes as part of this. And that will be replaced by what is, I think, viewed as a more industry standard vehicle routing and scheduling system designed by a company called Locus, which will then bring in a whole new suite of vehicle routing technology, which is different to what we currently use. And I'm well aware that even though people don't like REX, they're used to it. So even if we're bringing in a system that may be better, it's going to be different. And, I'm fully aware people don't necessarily like change. So we'll have to get used to using a new system that they'll interact with differently, that will have different characteristics, that will have, it certainly has benefits that the REX system doesn't have. But I do get the feeling that even if you hated REX, there may be it's better the devil you know type attitude. We're going to have to break that down. And the way we break that down on all of these new tech systems is got to be with, one, getting into the discussions, establishing exactly what the change agenda is, and then not education. The education is going to be train.
Yep.
So people are going to have to be trained fully on the new technology so that they're comfortable with it, because it's important that it works. Because Parcelforce, I think, are doing something unprecedented in changing most of their operating systems at one time. Now, what you can't have is a disaster, because if quality of service drops, then obviously the customer base starts to get unhappy. So it's absolutely key that that we're on top of this. And this is going to be the challenge for my department in the next couple of months, is making sure that we're absolutely in these discussions, that we're absolutely bottoming out the areas of concern, and that we've got solutions for them, because we need people seeing the benefit out of this. We need our members to view it as we do, as an opportunity, as a positive step in Parcelforce. This is, I'm going to be a bit careful and not mention the exact figure, but this is tens of millions of pounds worth of investment that's going into Parcelforce for the first time in 10, 20 years. This is an opportunity, but it doesn't mean it's going to be, it's like anything else. Whatever new technology you get, if it's different to your old one, it might take you a bit of time to come to terms with it. None of us like reading the manual. So getting proper training that absolutely gets our people in the right place is absolutely key, and that's going to be the priority between now and June. And we've arranged a reps briefing. We've got a reps briefing on the 12th of March where we're going to start talking to them about what this means, but we're also going to be talking to the members and making sure that they're as updated as possible. This was embargoed until Monday. We've known about it for a couple of months. It was embargoed as commercially confidential until Monday of this week. It's now out in the open. We can start to get into the detail. We can start exploring exactly what this means for our members, and start making sure that we're in a position where everybody understands what's going to happen, everybody understands what it means for them, and we're in a position where we can utilise this investment in Parcelforce to do what the plan is, to start growing the business, to start getting Parcelforce back on an upward trajectory.
Let's go to some questions from the audience. These are mainly ones we sort of collected before we went live. Questions on pay. Martin O'Neill says, any updates on Parcelforce pay talks? And then there's a sort of follow-on. Why were we bundled together with Royal Mail in the last pay deal? Is it the case again this year? So I suppose two related questions.
Well, they are related questions. Parcelforce has remained a separate bargaining unit, but it'd be fair to say, as a matter of experience, I think over not just the last probably going back to the 4 pillars, or even going back to the agenda for growth, we have tended to do group-wide pay agreements. That could happen again here, but we might decide to do something different. It depends on the circumstance. What we have got in the EP agreement, so for any of the members, and if Martin, I don't know if he's had a chance to look through the EP agreement, which was also called very similarly, it's Rebuilding Royal Mail. So we've got Building the Future in Parcelforce, and we've got Rebuilding Royal Mail, which is the agreement.
These plans often have quite similar names.
Yeah, it is. So we've got that in Royal Mail Group. Now that commits, in Section 5, it commits Royal Mail to reach an agreement with the union on pay. And actually, the EP agreement actually backstops that, because it actually says if there isn't an agreement in place by April the 1st, which is the pay review date, then EP Group will guarantee that there'll be an agreement within 3 months of the takeover taking place, which we expect to be probably around about that. Well, the last update I've had, we expect it to be probably in end of March, April, the deal would go through. So Section 5 in the EP agreement, and I think Martin, others will have mentioned this on previous sessions, we have got detailed, intensive discussions arranged with Royal Mail Group to start going through the Section 5 issues, one of which is pay. So we expect to be into pay talks in around the middle of March, and Parcelforce will be part of those talks, so they won't be left out. There will be a deal for Parcelforce. Whether that's the same deal as Royal Mail, or whether it's a a different deal or whether it's a different flavour of the same type of deal. All of those things are up for debate and up for negotiation. But what we shouldn't have is a repeat of what we had in 2022, 23. One of the reasons we ended up in dispute, and certainly the Parcelforce members will remember then, that Royal Mail Group's position was to offer what was a pretty poor deal in Royal Mail, but to offer absolutely nothing in Parcelforce, but still want the full change agenda. So we shouldn't be in that position again. We are committed to pay talks. Those pay talks are due to start in a couple of weeks, and Parcelforce will be absolutely part of those discussions. Our aspiration, as I think Martin's said before and has gone out in comms, is to secure for everybody, if we can, an above inflation pay deal for this year. I think we're open to a longer than 1 year deal if that was beneficial to us. But we are ready, we're prepared. The Postal Executive have spoken about policy, so we're prepared for those talks, which are due to start soon, and Parcelforce will absolutely be part of that.
So I've got a question which combines the issue of pay with what we were just talking about in terms of building the future transformation. So Stephen Cuthill says, Parcelforce and Royal Mail will be using the same network, then the same systems. Parcelforce already accept and deliver Royal Mail parcels, but Royal Mail drivers get paid more than Parcelforce.
The terms and conditions are certainly different. They may be slightly better in basic pay, but Parcelforce drivers get a driving allowance that Royal Mail delivery colleagues don't get. There's also, he's right, there's a delivery supplement in Royal Mail. So the terms and conditions are different. I think it'd be fair to say some of the elements are better in Royal Mail, some of the elements are better in Parcelforce. They're not like for like. The average pay, the average take-home pay for delivery people in Parcelforce is higher than Royal Mail. Now that's largely because we tend to work longer days. The delivery model is different. A Parcelforce, although the USO is currently, or the pilots will shape potential new delivery models in Royal Mail. The delivery model in Parcelforce is different. It tends to be around a 10-hour day rather than an 8-hour day. It normally involves SA, scheduled attendance or overtime, or as I'm sure Stephen, is aware, in Parcelforce we have been trialling different versions of the alternative reward mechanisms, where for performance above core we've looked at options around price per item, which has actually been very successful when we've got the volume. So the terms and conditions aren't the same. This project, the Rebuilding the Future Transformation Project, is not about full reintegration of Parcelforce. I want to make that clear. We will look at synergies. It may mean work moving between Parcelforce and Royal Mail, but it's not going to become the same job. Parcelforce run a loose load network carrying predominantly large items. Royal Mail run a containerised network, mostly carrying smaller items. Most Royal Mail sites couldn't accommodate a loose load model. Parcelforce parcels are too big to go in York containers. So that, there's no plans just now to reintegrate the companies. I don't think we would be looking to move to one, cohesive or one central set of terms and conditions. I think there is logic to having differences. So, he's right to some degree, but actually there's elements of the Parcelforce terms and conditions that probably exceed elements of the Royal Mail ones as well. So it is a mixed bag.
Yeah, and Base Nutter says far too many tiers in both companies. Most do the same job and should be uniformly rewarded. I mean, what's this, if a member's saying, why don't we all just get exactly the same terms and conditions? You just think that there's some benefit to there being some autonomy between the two different.
Well, there could be economies of scale, but I mean, we're opening up here some very big issues. Parcelforce are on monthly pay. An easy one. Parcelforce are on monthly pay. Royal Mail on weekly pay. You know, we've got various grades in Royal Mail, and we've got various grades in Parcelforce. In Royal Mail, we've got 2 professional driver grades. There's different supplements in mail centres, RDCs, to what there is in delivery. So even within both companies, you know, people are right. I'm not disputing the truth of what they're saying. Would it be right to move to a single set of terms and conditions? I think it'd be difficult. I've never really seen any appetite from Royal Mail or Royal Mail Group to do so. Listen, it's something we can always look at down the line, but the jobs are not currently the same. Yeah. They are different. As I say, the Parcelforce delivery option or model just now is very different to Royal Mail's. So I think there is a logic to keeping them distinct at this time, but you know, never say never.
Yeah, because you've also got the issue that people are in their routines, right? So
yeah,
it's one of the things that comes up a lot with Royal Mail, that sort of it's a early, compared to most other professions, it's an early start and an early end, but people went into that job for that reason and they've built their lives around that. So then sort of the idea that you change it to hours that other industries have sort of is very disruptive. Let's ask 2 very different questions actually to what we've been discussing so far. Dan and Nats Travel says, will we be getting uniforms that are fit for purpose? The new uniforms look nice at first, but the cheap transfer logos are pretty much gone on most of the drivers in our depots' coats and T-shirts. Also, the boots that we have to choose from is pitiful. Why can't we have the same choice as the Royal Mail workers on footwear?
That is a good question, and to be honest, I see no reason why they shouldn't, other than probably what we've been speaking about at length, is there's been a level of underinvestment in Parcelforce. So there have been differences. I mean, even back in the days when I was in Parcelforce uniform, it was different to the Royal Mail uniform. The companies have traditionally wanted to differentiate, you know, even visually for the customer, the difference between the postie walking up the garden path and the Parcelforce driver. So the uniforms have looked different. There's absolutely no reason why the Parcelforce uniform should be of a lesser quality than the Royal Mail one. It's interesting, we do review it time by time. It's not something in the department, I'll say, we've had a lot of feedback on the uniform, but certainly if there is a view or a general view that the uniform is of a lesser standard than Royal Mail, then I'm certainly more than willing to look at that, because there's no reason why that would be the case or should be the case.
So you're saying this isn't something that you've sort of noticed come up that often?
It's not something that's been raised in the department often. Listen, I ain't wearing it.
Yeah.
So I'm
if there are people
good, and that's the general feedback, we will attempt to do something about it.
So if there are people who are watching this and thinking, yeah, I agree, I also think that our union, how should they do that?
Well, they talk to the rep, talk to the regional organiser. There's always a sort of line of sight from the depots into headquarters. We are always interested in their views. There have been times in the past where uniforms have been a big topic of conversation. Factually, over the last year or so, I can't recall ever having a letter about it. But, if people feel that strongly about it, then we'll certainly ask the question.
Yeah, it might be that after this has been raised, it will flood in. We'll see if other people have the same views. Lots of questions on duty times. Gomez73, I've heard our duty times will be changed yet again, making it a later finish for reserve drivers. Any truth in this? And if so, what start and finish times are being proposed? And then before I get your answer, I'll go to Aaron Harvey, who says, is sign in, sign out coming? Are duty times changing? As I struggle to pick up kids from after school clubs at the moment on 5 p.m. SA. We're getting the Royal Mail system. What's replacing route balancer? Drivers have a million questions. All we keep getting told is massive changes. So actually, I think there's a number of issues in that second one, isn't there?
I think there's
but let's sort of stay to the duty times question first off.
Well, the duty times, as it stands just now, in the past, and even during the initial talks during the dispute resolution, There was talk about retarding the network, moving the network later, which would have had an impact on, a bit like Network Window and Royal Mail, it would have had an impact on the delivery start and finish times. The company stepped back from that, and nobody to this date, and I will go and test this now that we've had this feedback, as part of the discussions on building the future transformation to date, nobody has spoken to us about delaying the network. So effectively, we should still be processing to the same time window. Those trailers should be moving from the hubs into the depots. There are changes to what we do in the depots in regard to the number of scans, which may have an effect. We are going to look at the way we provide the parcels to the delivery routes, which has been an age-old question in Parcelforce, was what's the best model? Is it the night shift, loading the vans, and then the driver coming in the morning, loading the last few and going? Or, as a lot of drivers, I think, believe they prefer to load the van themselves? Or is it a mixture of both? All of that still needs to work through, but we've not had any specific proposals about changing network timings at this stage. So it's not something that's been massively on the radar. It's not something that was included in the Parcelforce comms that were issued earlier in the week. But we will certainly, we are in constant dialogue with the company now, and we will, I'll make sure that issue is on the agenda. But I don't see a need for the network times to change purely because we're changing IT. We're not changing the network.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple of questions with acronyms that I don't know, so but I'm assuming you're going to understand them in a way that I don't.
Hopefully.
Simon Smith, can we have more information on the One Network and how it is going to work? Are PFW going to keep the brand, or that's actually just Parcelforce Worldwide? Sorry, I do know what that means. Yeah. Going to keep the brand, or will we just merge in with Royal Mail? I think you've answered that.
Yeah, Parcelforce, as it stands just now, Parcelforce will remain not just as a brand, but as an operation. So it's not just there'll be parcels that are Parcelforce parcels. We will still have a Parcelforce depot network. We will still have Parcelforce sort centres. We may move traffic between both networks, but there will still be a Parcelforce operation. At this stage, there are no plans to fully reintegrate.
And this is an acronym I'm pretty sure I don't know. Simon Smith, is PRB still going to be used, or is that going with the rest of the Parcelforce software?
The current version will go which is a Parcelforce Route Balancer.
Right. So
it's really the means of making sure, well, if Parcelforce management used it as often as they should, which they don't always, it's a way of making sure that we don't have, if we were on adjacent routes, it should allow or not allow a situation where you went out loaded to the roof, and my route went out with very little on it. So it's a way of balancing the traffic across the route base.
Which is done via software.
It's done by software. So the current version, which is linked to Rex, will go, but the new Locus software and vehicle routing platform, and we are, Parcelforce Royal Mail Group have bought the whole suite of technology that goes within that. It does have route balancing technology. So yes, the current one's going, but it will be replaced by a new one that's compatible with the new Locus system, which will also, and I think this will be welcomed by our Parcelforce drivers. This Locus system, for the first time, will have access to the full Royal Mail postcode database, which was always denied to Parcelforce up to now, because Parcelforce wouldn't share it with, Royal Mail wouldn't share it with Geoplan. But now we're moving to the one system. Then Parcelforce will get access to the full Royal Mail postcode database, which should again make routing more accurate than it's been during the 10 years of Rex, which haven't been a happy 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds completely bizarre if Royal Mail isn't sharing postcode data with Parcelforce, but glad to hear that's being resolved.
I think it's as simple as Royal Mail didn't have a commercial agreement with Geoplan. Parcelforce,
because they were using different systems. Yeah, it makes sense. Simon Smith, is there going to be investment in depots? Are the smaller depots going to look for larger premises to cope with the extra volumes that are predicted?
Well, I think all of that's up up for debate. I'll tell you now, if the company's serious about growing to be a 150 million item a year carrier, then there will have to be investment in new depots. This initial investment, and I think we've covered it, but I know people are probably interested. What's it going on? All of this initial investment is on technology, is on IT. But the company have been quite clear that once we get through this phase, and once the ability to maximise the synergies with Royal Mail are expanded upon, then investment in the depot network. And that could mean new depots. It could mean new sort capability within those depots, upgrading the technology, something more, superior to what we currently use, which is boom conveyors and roller bed technology. So yes, I think there will be investment for that, but it's not part of this phase. That comes down the line. That'll be after we land this initial sort of phase through 2025, which is get the new IT technology in, get it working for our members, get it working for the company, put it in a position where we can start to grow volume. That's the point then where I think we will be seeking significant investment in the depot infrastructure to make sure that we can get to that 150 million, because that is absolutely a demand, because we cannot get to 150 million on the current depot infrastructure. The best we did during COVID was about 95 to 100, and we were bursting at the seams. We need new investment. We will need new depots. We will need new kit and equipment to make that leap to 150 million items.
Well, you've just said we will need new depots. Mark Duncan asked earlier in the day, actually, with Reading local depot closing in May, I assume that's what LD stands for.
Yeah.
Will there be any more depots closing?
We don't anticipate it. In fact, Reading is something of an anomaly. So, believe it or not, on the same day that the managing director initially told us about the building the future transformation, was actually the same day he told me at the same time, albeit in a different meeting, that they were going to have to close Reading. The Reading closure is not strategic in as much as it's not building for the future. The Reading closure is purely a factor of circumstance. The current depot, Royal Mail Group, Parcelforce, don't own it. It's owned by a third party. The building's in a significant amount of disrepair. Without divulging sort of commercial issues, the landlord, I believe, wanted a significant cash injection from Royal Mail to upgrade his depot, not Parcelforce's depot. And Parcelforce and Royal Mail Group property have taken the view that that's not an opportunity that they wish to explore, to fund somebody else's renovations. So there's been a decision taken to come out of Reading, and we're dealing with that just now, and we're supporting the members through that change at Reading, which is difficult for them, that is. And it's something we've not seen in Parcelforce in 20 years, site rationalisation. But I do think Reading is particular. I don't anticipate any further closures. I think the next time round it'll be about growth. Unfortunately, I suppose, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, because we're currently at 75 million items, not 90 million, the business view is that they can currently absorb the Reading work into the surrounding depots, Basingstoke, Oxford, Aldershot, without moving to a new depot at this point. All of the cash just now is going on the IT, but down the line, the fact that we're reducing from 54 to 53 means that if we are serious about getting to 150 million items, then at some point we will have to start investing, or the company will have to start investing in new depots. So I think it'll be an upward trajectory from here on in.
I know it sounds, from what you've just said, that was, not an outrageous decision by Royal Mail and Parcelforce. It wasn't really in their, in there. They didn't have the agency really to make that work. But how did that affect members? Did people lose their jobs with that, or did it mean that people have to drive further?
No, nobody loses their jobs. I mean, Parcelforce, and we were very clear on the Reading closure that the commitments to no compulsory redundancy and MTSF, which is the Managing the Surplus Framework, which is the national agreement which deals with site closures, with situations where we have potential job losses. So anybody that leaves the business does so because they choose to, and they go with compensation under MTS. Well, under the terms that are currently available, which is roughly a maximum in 9 months and pylon, or we look for redeployment opportunities. For the drivers in Reading, the company certainly believe they can redeploy all of them into alternative driving roles at the surrounding Parcelforce depots. However, if somebody would rather go into Royal Mail, then we can look at opportunities for them there. And that's certainly more the avenue we're looking at in regard to some of the admin and indoor staff at Reading. But we are, our agreements are fairly robust. There can be no compulsory redundancy. Nobody can be forced out of work. We will get a job for everybody. We will redeploy everybody. If they choose to go, then they'll go with a compensation package.
Yeah. J-Mac, if there is to be changes in our depot, will we be kettle fished into jobs again under the stability route, or will we be able to choose which jobs suit our needs? And this is from someone who's part of Parcelforce Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Well, look, I think what the reference is probably to is some of the the poor practices. I think managerial practices that grew up during the dispute, and those would be around probably about maximising owner drivers or giving owner drivers first priority on routes. So effectively, then maybe moving our people off of their route and onto another route because it suited the purpose of the manager at the time. No, we absolutely don't support that approach, the way we would be approaching it. And we haven't got to the point just now. This IT or this technology change wouldn't, in our view, necessitate route revisions. But if we are to enter into route revisions again, and we may do so at some point, then absolutely we would want an agreement around that, and we would want to ensure that those routes were negotiated by representatives on behalf of the members. And once we had agreed a route package for the depot, then there's then a proper selection process that recognises that every member should have the right to select their route in line with processes and the agreed standards, which I have to say traditionally have been seniority. So no, we wouldn't be allowing a scenario where managers decided what route people were doing based on nepotism, keeping the owner driver happy, whatever other priorities managers have from time to time. Don't forget, the EP agreement also talks very long and large about resetting the IR interface, the IR relationships, and that absolutely applies to Parcelforce. So, and Parcelforce during the dispute bore the brunt of a lot of our business to manage ethos. There was an awful lot of bad examples of managerial activity in Parcelforce, some of the worst in Parcelforce. The EP agreement says that's of the past, and we've spoken to the regional organisers along with the divisional reps about how they'll be involved in making sure that those IR relationships are improved, that actually the union and the voice of the union and the voice of the union's members, more importantly, is listened to again, and that we get back to a position of working together rather than constantly fighting over every piece of change. And that is going to have to, for some of the Parcelforce management team, I don't mind saying it, this call ain't for them, although I'm sure there'll be some of them listening. Some of the things that happened during the dispute weren't right, and you will need to take a step back. We are now committed to working together, and working together means exactly that. It doesn't mean imposition. It doesn't mean forced change. It means negotiation. It means consensus. It means bringing your people with us. And that's exactly what they're going to have to do.
One more question. Jonah says, Davie, have you had any proposals on the night shifts dropping Sundays and having drivers coming early on Monday, tipping and sorting?
Not specifically, but it is a mixed bag just now, Jonas. They're not every depot runs night shift operations on the Sunday. It is a mixed bag. What we want to do as part of this, and as I said earlier, not so much as part of the IT change, but as part of growing the business, we do want to look at, whether we can standardise some of the indoor operations. I think, and I've thought for many years, and I've been impressing on the company for many years, that I think one of the biggest problems in Parcelforce in collection and delivery in the depots is not what happens out in the road. It's what happens in the depot before the drivers go out. It's have we got the best mix? Have we found the best model for loading vans, for unloading trailers, for sorting the traffic, for loading vans? Is the best mix the current one? Should the indoor operation do more? Should the drivers do more? How did the drivers in the indoor operation, the night shift operation interact? I think all of that's up for grabs. And I think we are, as always, open to ideas, to suggestions, because, listen, the people, I've never been in any part of Royal Mail, and even now, my remit covers mail centres, distribution, international, RMSS, in addition to Parcelforce. And I've never seen a part of any part of Royal Mail Group where actually the people who know the operation best aren't the people who actually sit in the front line. And it's true in every part of the business, and that includes Parcelforce. So we want your engagement, we want your ideas, because we've got to get the operation better. We've got to get the operation more consistent, because what makes Parcelforce is that Parcelforce hits 97,
yeah.
Get it round the right way, 97.5% quality of service every day. That's where we can win the premium traffic. And the way we do that is by making sure that the operation is cohesive, that each part of it interact properly. And I think, again, my managerial colleagues will take the hump, to use a Scottishism, but I think a lot of the problems just now are down to lazy management, poor use of the resource available to them. So all of these issues about how we unload, how we tip trailers, how we sort the traffic, how we load the vans is all up for grabs. So we don't have proposals at this stage, but I've got to say, we are going to the business with proposals on what we think would make it better, because I don't think the status quo is really working for anybody just now.
Yeah. Now, let's wrap up there. I was going to say, this is my first Parcelforce show. It's a smaller group of workers than Royal Mail.
It is.
But incredibly active. I mean, the amount of questions we've had in today is phenomenal. The viewers, you can tell, so, when it's Royal Mail, sometimes you get about 1,000. Here we've got 114, which kind of reflects actually the difference in the size of the workforce. But there aren't 10 times fewer questions. The Parcelforce, your Parcelforce members are very, very active, lots of ideas, very, very engaged. So thank you so much for all of that. Any final thoughts from you before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, just on that last point, I mean, I think it's also true that there'll be quite a lot of the Parcelforce drivers still out en route or just coming back at this time. So 5 o'clock ain't the optimum time. Of course, what I would hope and what I would encourage anybody who's watched today's session, if you've enjoyed it, if you found it useful, then talk to your mate, get them to watch it on YouTube, where I believe it remains available.
It will remain available.
So hopefully those figures will grow. We want to make sure that Parcelforce have visibility, and we want to make sure that we are visible to Parcelforce. Of course, Royal Mail are the big numbers, and there's some very big ticket issues in Royal Mail, and it's easy for Parcelforce members to feel a bit unloved. Trust us, we love you. We're always working for you. We're always trying to do our best by you. And we will, we'll make sure there's more sessions like this in the future. But look, I'll finish on this. This year is going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of change. But as I said earlier, and I think it's where I would like people to pitch their focus, we always deal with change. And in Parcelforce, we've dealt with change over years where it's been about shrinking what we've got. It's been about contracting the business. It's been about reducing what we do. We went from a company, 20 years ago, we went from a company that had 16 sort centres, 104 depots, down to one, which initially had one sort centre and 50 depots. We're now at 3 sort centres and 54. Soon, unfortunately, we're heading to be 53. But we're now talking about a journey that's back upwards. Yep. It's about growing the business. It's about rebuilding Parcelforce into something bigger than it is now. And I've got to say, while change will always be difficult, I would rather be talking about change in a growing business than a shrinking one. And I would like, when you're having a bad day in June, when you can't get the PDA to work, or you're wishing you had Rex back, I'm joking there, hopefully, then remember that this is all now on an upward trajectory, and we are hopefully in a position where we can start to, make Parcelforce somewhere where our members are more happy to work, where they're proud to work, and where they can actually see some investment and some growth in their business, guaranteeing their job security and their longevity, now and into the future. So hang to that thought when you're having a dark day, when it's all looking a bit difficult during the summer. We're going to support you through it all to the best of our ability. We're going to be working extremely hard to make sure it works for you. So stick with it. And I think I'm enthused just now. I think there has been a change in the, there's a change in the air around Parcelforce, and the attitudes Royal Mail have to Parcelforce. Don't mean it'll be easy, but we are fighting for growth rather than trying to defend, a decline in business. So I think it's a good news story.
Yeah. Well, Davie Robertson, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you guys so much for watching and for all your comments and your questions. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Until then, stick with your union.